Hey everyone, so in this video we are going to add HP to the player and to the enemy, and that as the attacks play out, both their HPs will be reduced by a corresponding amount, and that those values will be put onto the screen. So first let's create the UI. So if you notice, I've added a new image here. Again, this was just drawn in an external paint program, and we're just going to drag and drop it into the scene. Now, couple things. A, of course, you can't see it because of what we were saying before about order and layer. We're not going to bring it to 10, though. We're going to bring it just to 9 because there's going to be something on top of it. So let's move this up and over. As you can see, it's translucent. I think I mentioned this in the last video about backgrounds, that in the paint program I use, Anime Studio, you simply have the ability to have a layer have a certain level of opacity to it, or translucence. That's all I did. So nothing special. Whatever paint program you use should give you the ability to do that. However, if you don't do that in the paint program, you can always click on color and set the alpha to less than 255. It defaults to 255, which is full opacity. You can drop it to make it translucent. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're now going to create a text object, and that's going to display the HP. So we're going to go to Game Object, 3D Object, and 3D Text. Some people have said that 3D Text is basically deprecated, but it's still in the UI. They still let you use it, so I'm going to still use it. They do have Text Mesh Pro, but I'd rather not get into it for a simple tutorial like this. So what we're going to do, so with that object selected, I'm going to change this to HP, which really doesn't matter because we're going to modify this with a script anyways, but at least this will let us size it and position it. So character size, let's make this like 0.2, and let's give it a font size of like 18, and let's see how that looks. Okay. So that should be a decent size. Now, we're not actually going to be able to see it. You can see it because it's surrounded, but if I click away, it can't be seen because, again, order and layer. Now, for whatever reason, they don't give you the ability to change that in the inspector. You have to use a script. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's rename this Hero HP Text. We're going to right-click, create, C#, and let's call this, text con. So we're going to be controlling text. So we click on the Hero HP Text object. We put the text con script on it. We open that up. And now we get rid of the // statements because, again, those are remarks and they are not executed. And what we want to do is in the start section, we want to change the sorting order, the order and layer. Why do they call it sorting order instead of order and layer? Because it's Unity. So get component, renderer, sorting order, and we'll put this at 10. Now in the update section, what we need to do, we're going to now change the value of the text. In the inspector, we changed it to HP, but I said that was just for positioning. We're going to make its actual value here in the update section. But we need a variable first. So let's go to our GameFlow script and let's create two variables, one for the player HP and one for the enemy HP. So public static float, and this will be enemy HP, and we'll set it at, say, 75. Public static float. We'll call this Hero HP, and we'll set it at 100. I'm just randomly grabbing numbers. You can use whatever you want. They need to be static, that way they're accessible throughout the entire application. And let's go back to TextCon. And in the update section, and you want this to be in the update section, not in the start section. In the update section, we want to, with every frame, update what this text field is displaying. So get component text mesh dot text equals. So we said we wanted to have the letters HP, a space, a colon, another space, and then the plus sign to indicate that we're going to concatenate. That is, you're stringing multiple values together. And we want GameFlow, which is where that variable is declared. And we want hero HP. And there you go. Now, here's the thing. If I copy this and this, that way I put it over here and use the same thing for the enemy, I'm going to need to differentiate between the two objects. So we're going to modify that code in just a few seconds. So let's copy these, move this over. We will rename this one enemy HP text. Come back to this, and now we're just going to check the name. So if game object dot name equals hero HP text. Sorry, it should be a double equals. Then this is the value. However, again, I'm copying this partially out of laziness and partially to reinforce the fact that this is not new functionality. You're just repurposing this. So the only difference we want to check for a different name, it's going to be enemy HP text, and it's going to be enemy HP. All right, let's just quickly run that to make sure that this says 100, this says 75, and perfect. So now what we want to do, let's go back to that script, and now we need to have these variables be modified based on the attacks. So if we go to the enemy con script, this is when we say that the enemy attack is ended and go to idle. So at the end of the attack is really probably when we want the HP to be modified. So GameFlow dot hero HP minus equals 10. So in other words, whatever hero HP is equal to, minus 10 from it. Now let's go over to self-destroy, because this is where we're determining that the player attack has ended. So here it says whose turn is changed to enemy, whose turn is changed to enemy. This one was for the sword, this one was for the spell. So you should also use different values too. So this will be GameFlow dot enemy HP minus equals, we'll say 15. And here we'll do GameFlow dot enemy HP minus equals 20. Because if the attacks do exactly the same damage, why bother give you different attacks? Now, ultimately, what will happen is you'll have much more complex calculations adjusting for enemy defense. Are they resistant to magic? Are they resistant to physical attacks? Things like that. But again, it's iterative. You got to get the basics in place before you can build on it. So if I haven't forgotten anything, that now should give us the enemy and player HP changing based on the attacks. So he's got 75. I hit him with the sword. Goes down to 60. He hit me, went down to 90. This one I said should be a difference of 20, so he should go down to 40. He did. We went down to 80. Absolutely perfect. You now have the basics of the combat system. So in the last one, you had the basics of player, enemy, and you had the animations, but you didn't actually have the HP. Now that you have HP, you can now make decisions. Like if this goes to 0, then you would use Scene Manager to load either your save game load scene or an end scene. And if you win, then you'd use Scene Manager to load in wherever you are on the map. I obviously can't do that because this isn't part of a larger project, okay? So you're just going to have to do that part on your own. But again, it's just Scene Manager, load scene, and the name of the scene. Now what I'll do is I'll add a few more things to this. Like for instance, we have a melee attack, we have a spell attack. What I can do, I can add, say, a heal spell and, say, a poison spell. So the heal would heal the player, so you would see this go up, and the poison would poison the enemy, but it would last several turns, because right now it's one and done. You hit him with a sword, he loses HP, and that's it. So we can look at how to do heal over time and damage over time, essentially is what I'm saying. And a brief splice there while I took a few minutes to quickly draw a couple icons, one for healing and one for poison. So let's go ahead and take that heal icon, put it into the scene. Again, order and layer needs to be brought up to 10, since it's going to be what we're using as the UI layer. And we'll just position these same distance apart. So this was -8. This one was negative. Let's make that something a little bit simpler. Let's make that 6.5. And since the difference is 1.5, that means this should now just be -5. So it's easy enough to create equal spacing. The gap's a little bit too big, but you get the idea. And then again, you're trying to have consistency visually. Okay, so this is really easy. So let's, again, rinse and repeat what we did with these two. Add component, physics 2D, box collider, trigger. That way we can click on it. We're going to add the icon script to it. And what we're going to do, we don't have an animation yet, so I might fudge this. Let's go into the script and see what we can do. So for now, since we don't have an animation, and I've already demonstrated how to do that, so you can always do that yourself, let's instead just do if game object dot name equals, and we'll make this, I believe this was heal icon. Don't think I used an underscore that time. And you just do game flow, because again, that's where the variable is declared. Hero HP plus equals, say, 50. Now, again, once you create an animation, you can then instantiate it. I will put something here just so it doesn't give us an error and say that it's missing. Now you can say, great, we healed for 50 HP, all good. Well, here's the problem. This isn't checking what your maximum HP would be. So presuming that you don't want to be able to heal beyond your maximum, you need to know what the maximum is. So that means we add a new variable. So in game flow, we said, this is what your current HP is. But you also need to know what the maximum HP is, because presumably if you have a game with leveling, then this will keep increasing. The maximum HP will keep increasing. So public static float max hero HP. Also 100. Whoops. Float, not gloat. Sorry about that. So whenever your character levels up, you have to make sure you adjust that accordingly. And now we go back to icon and we do this. If gameflow dot hero HP is greater than gameflow dot max hero HP. Okay, so in other words, if you've exceeded the max hero HP, then you just want hero HP to be equal to the max. You don't want it to exceed the max. And we can test this if I haven't forgotten anything. So we can test this right away, actually. So it won't skip to the enemy's turn, though. So I click on heal. Can't really see anything happening because we're not exceeding it, but I want to make sure that the enemy's turning is changing. So let's also change this. At the end, we'll say game flow dot whose turn equals enemy. So again, since we didn't have an animation, we had to handle this slightly differently. We actually had the change in HP be done right here when you're clicking on the icon, and that we had the change in turn. You would not have to do that if we had an animation. So let's try that again. So if I heal myself, this should not exceed. He attacks. Now, if I heal, this should go up to 100 and then change back. And it did. So let's attack him. Let's attack him. Attack him. Attack. All right, so now this should briefly bring me up to 100, and then he'll bring me back down to 90. Okay, so just like that, now you have healing functionality. And then just like as I mentioned that you would make the calculation for damage be more complex, you would also make this calculation more complex. Maybe you have an object that increases healing by a fixed amount or by a percent. Then you would add additional variables that adjust this. Okay, and so now let's do the poison. That one's slightly trickier because it has to last a few turns. Okay, so let's take our poison icon, put it into the scene. Give an ordering layer of 10. We will align it with the other ones. So we said it's a difference of 1.5. And this, I believe, was 4.25. And just like the other ones, add component, physics 2D, box collider is trigger. And we put on the icons script. Now, before we continue, let's create the particle system. So game object, effects, particle system. Let's use in shape rather than using cone like last time. Let's use circle. We'll rotate it towards the screen. We'll use the same duration. So I believe this was 0.6 and this was 0.5. Start speed, I think, should be about 2. Start size will get down to like 0.1. And start color Give this like a dark green. Let's align it here. We will go down to renderer. Again, we want the order and layer to be 2 for spells. Now we want more mission, so let's bring this up to like 500. For shape, go back to the shape section and change the radius to 0.1. That way it's originating from a very tiny circle, and the radius of that should also be 0.1, so we've concentrated where it's originating from. Let's go to size over lifetime, putting a check there, expanding it out. Increase this top number to 3, because what this is this is a percent. So starting at a certain size, what size does it go up to? Just going to move this dot so it starts off as a larger size too. And there, now it kind of has this cloud look because it's puffing out. Let's make this more like 4. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this become translucent as it's getting bigger, because right now it's just kind of popping out of place and it doesn't look right. So we go to color over lifetime, click here. We're not changing the colors, we're just coming up here, and we're changing the alpha. So now it fades out as it goes out. It's actually fading out the entire time, but that's fine. Okay. So, poison. Let's try that again. Right. Poison. Particle system. Drag that into our scene. We need to give it the tag of poison. You'll notice that there's already a poison tag here because I was testing earlier. So do the normal, go to add tag, create the new tag, and then select poison. And now we just need the click of this to instantiate it. So we'll take that poison particle system, put it sword attack object. And again, with a little more foresight, I probably should have just called this attack object rather than sword attack object, but that's fine. Now let's go to our script and make sure everything is happening that should. We've got a couple of things to do. So, icon, we have our particle system. We have no coding to say what to do. So we're just going to grab one of these, copy, paste, again, out of laziness and to reinforce that you're just repurposing this code. And it's poison icon, and there is no space. And it's going to instantiate this using its rotation and position. So that should be fine. Now what we need to do is when it gets destroyed, we need to do things a little bit differently. So let's copy this here. And we give it a tag of poison. Let me double check to make sure I spelled it right there. As I said, I had to take this a few times. And we'll go back here. And nope, I spelled it wrong there. So I-O-N. Rather than fixing it, we'll just keep it. Okay, so we want to not go to here. We're going to create a new IEnumerator coroutine, which is going to be similar, but not identical. So we'll call this one poison enemy. Before I forget, poison enemy. So if the tag of the object, the particle system, is poison enemy, we set a delay to 1.1 and start the coroutine. This coroutine awaits the 1.1. Minus is 20 HP. Let's change that to like 15. Turn should change to enemy and destroy game object, but this needs to persist. So that means we need a new variable that tracks how many turns remain. So back to game flow. public static float. So poison turns REM as in remaining. It should start as 0. And here, game flow dot poison turn remaining is going to be set to 3. So basically that means 3 turns it will get poisoned, including the initial damage, so technically 4 turns. Now we need to put in code that has that turn be reduced whenever the turn changes from player to enemy. So, yeah, because we can do it at the beginning of the turn. So it turns from player so this is where it turns from enemy to player, and we said we want the poison to happen first. Some games I've seen that DOTs be done after the enemy goes. That's purely your choice. I'm going to take the approach, because the coding allows for it easily, we're going to have the poison happen first. So, and as we know, the slime only has 1 attack, so this is the only way the slime is going to attack. So game flow dot poison turns remaining. So actually, sorry, if it's greater than 0, then we want something to happen. It doesn't, oh, it's capital I. There we go. So if gameflow.poison turns is greater than 0, then we want the enemy to take damage. So that's as easy as gameflow dot enemy HP minus equals, we said it does 15. And you can do a check in here too to see if it's equal to or less than 0, and then that way this doesn't happen, but we're not going to do that for now. That's the more advanced. And we should also have poison. Sorry. We want game flow dot poison turn remaining to be reduced by 1, minus equals 1. So if it's greater than 0, do damage and reduce how many turns are left. So if I haven't forgotten anything, that should do it. Let's make sure if we click on our poison icon, it's got the poison at PS. So it should remove 15 from that. Okay, so a couple things. A, it's not ending, it's cycling. So that's an easy fix. So we open the prefab. Yep, I forgot to get rid of the looping. Okay. But that means it did not self-destruct. So we go to our poison PS. If tag is POSION, let's go to, oh, I don't think I actually put the script on it. Self-destroy. Yep, that's what was wrong. Okay. So we click on poison. Okay, problem is that it did all the hits at once. So that means this is happening multiple times, and that's because this is in an update section. So we can't put it there like I hoped. We need to put it just before. So it looks like we're going to have to do it after they attack, then at the end. Otherwise, we'd have to put in another variable that says, did it get poisoned this turn already? All right, so we can't do it that way. We can, but I don't want to add another variable and make it more crazy than absolutely necessary. So we will instead do it here, because this is when it goes idle. So in other words, rather than having this before the enemy attacks, it happens after the enemy attacks. And you could leave it up here. Like I said, you just have to create another variable, and you would say, has it been poisoned this round yet, is what you would do. I just don't feel like doing it. So we click on poison, it gets poisoned, dropped. Still dropped twice though. I think it's because, oh, it took the original damage. So if we get rid of the original damage, then let's get rid of the original damage. So that's when we first instantiate. Actually, we didn't do anything there. Instantiate poison. So it's in self-destroy. We'll get rid of this one for the poison enemy and try one more time. Poison, 60, heal, 45, we'll heal, 30, we'll heal. There we go. So sorry for the few missteps there, but now it's working, that the poison worked all 3 times. Okay, so what you can do, you could, if you want to have some visual effect every time they're poisoned, what you could do is here, when the damage is being done, you would have an instantiate. So just as you're instantiating a poison damage here, the poison attack, you could similarly have some kind of particle system or visual be instantiated here. Again, you would have to put a reference up here to it. But okay, I think I'm going to end it here. The ending was a bit rough there. My apologies. I should have thought it out a little bit better, but it works. Like I said, the poison is happening after the turn, so that's a bit of an issue. But again, that's a game balance decision, because some games do indeed have you poison the enemy get poisoned after their turn. And again, you can indeed put it here. You just have to do an additional variable checking to see if it's been poisoned already. Okay, so that should do it. I hope that you found this helpful. And that's the majority of it. Maybe one more video if you have some requests. But that's it. That gives you your combat system. You now have the ability to have different types of damage. You now have the ability to heal yourself. You have the ability to poison the enemy. If you had a separate heal that did heal over time, the functionality would be very similar. But rather than doing poison to the enemy and doing a subtraction, you would do a positive to your player. And again, you're just changing variables. So I think that should do it. And again, if you have any questions, any requests, just add a comment. And please enjoy the rest of your day.